So as I mentioned, today's guest is Vanessa Grant. Hello, Vanessa.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. I've got my tea. I'm ready to
Woohoo!
go.
What kind of tea have you got?
Got chai today.
Ooh, excellent, excellent. I've never, it's funny. I do tea. I don't do coffee, which is why I do tea. But I've never. I don't think I've ever tried a chai. But
It's good. It's
maybe,
good.
maybe I will. I had a guy say to me once. He finds it funny in coffee shops when people order chai tea because apparently chai is just tea in another language.
Is it really?
Apparently.
Well, now I've learned something today.
There you go. Oh, call's over. There we go. All right. So, thank you for making the time. Vanessa is, we are on opposite coasts of, well, we're in two different countries, but we're on opposite coasts of the North American continent. So, let's just start off, Vanessa. Why don't you tell us, I guess, what your current role is and just how you got there? Where did you come from?
Where did I come from? I am an associate principal consultant at Salesforce Partner Simplus. So I tend to work enterprise level projects, either implementing Salesforce or doing, lightning migrations or org merges or whatever giant initiative some giant company needs help with. And how did I start? I started working on CRM projects, I would say, pretty much as soon as I started working. I started off my career, I spent 17 years at a SaaS company. Started as an intern, left as a VP of business ops, and um, it was a radio company. And I will say, in the radio industry, people aren't really very data focused. So when I kind of
Mm.
came in being like, ooh, wow, I'm really excited about all this data stuff and maybe we can organize it a little differently, I kind of became the de facto person of like, oh, let's let Vanessa manage the CRM because she actually cares about it. The CRM was initially, we started with, well, first we started with Excel sheets because it was a little startup-y. Then it was Access for a while, and then we upgraded to Sales Logics, and then we had Goldmine, and then we had Sugar CRM, and Salesforce kind of came around in 2010 for me, and that's when I got my first Salesforce demo. Realized that it could replace our current CRM and a custom solution we had built, and completely changed my life.
Excellent. Okay. So you've been in Salesforce then for how long, roughly?
12 years.
Oh wow. Okay. And so I should say, like most people that I'm interviewing to start this off, Vanessa and I met on Twitter, and she hosts every Wednesday night a Twitter Space, which is Twitter's audio meeting platform. Salesforce Career Show with Josh Matthews and Vanessa Grant. So, how long have you been doing that, and how did you get started? Um, how did you find that as a niche?
That was weird. Uh I kind of got into the Salesforce community in the last, I would say, 2.5 years. I didn't really dive too much in the community when I was when I was overseeing my org as a customer. And when I dove into the community, um, having had been in a leadership role previously, I'd managed a team of devs and admins. And one of the things I love being a manager is helping people on their careers. So nudging them the directions that they want to go, keeping track of, what's going on with them. And as I moved into the community and I was kind of overseeing projects as opposed to people, I found mentorship being a good outlet to kind of still get that warm fuzzy in my chest, helping people in their careers without actually having to manage them and deal with all the HR crap that comes with that. I started kind of doing some speaking and doing. I joined the Trailblazer mentorship program as a mentor, and really started helping folks guide them in their careers. Part of that ended up being I got onto Clubhouse when Clubhouse was a thing. I don't know if anybody's still on Clubhouse. I'm going to guess not at this point. But all the hardcore Salesforce influencers were like, okay, we're going to get onto Clubhouse and see what this is about. And I was an early adopter. And one of the things was there was a career show on Clubhouse. It was Josh Matthews, Chris Hopper, and Megan Damrow. And I joined not because I needed a job, but because I was doing a lot of mentorship and I wanted to be able to advise folks properly. I mean, I had been a hiring manager for admins and devs, but I've never been a recruiter. And the ecosystem's always changing. So going to the show every week, besides being able to kind of offer my perspective when people were asking like about certification paths and things that the recruiters weren't necessarily as familiar with, I got a lot from them just on how to find a Salesforce job. And so Josh and I connected that way. And when Clubhouse kind of went, we moved to Twitter, and Megan and Chris, went off to do other things. And Josh is like, do you want to co-host with me? Because you do answer a lot of the questions that I can't really answer. And I certainly wouldn't want to give, recruiter advice without having a recruiter. He's got that expertise. So I think we kind of make a good team, very well-rounded
Mhm.
for folks that are having career questions with Salesforce.
Excellent. Yeah, I've managed to go to one. I'm usually it's because I'm usually feeding my children. I've talked about this with other guests that it's very common to hear Salesforce likes to talk about how many jobs they're creating because the CRM is so powerful or so popular because it's so powerful. But there's not enough admins slash devs slash whatever to go around. And yet we do see, I see it in Reddit forums, on Twitter, people who are racing to take their admin cert, what have you, and then they don't know where to go. What do you find? Do you find any common barriers, any common things that come up on the show in terms of, is it mostly people trying to find a job or people not sure what to do next in their job?
Mostly people trying to find a job. I mean, I think there's a lot more folks that are looking for that first Salesforce career, especially post-pandemic. You've got a lot of
Mhm.
folks that are, from the education and healthcare sectors that are looking to make a transition, that are at this point, folks are tired of going into work a lot of times, or they want to spend more time with their families, or they're sick of what the pandemic's done to their particular career. So Salesforce is, I think it offers, besides a nice salary path, it's also that prospect of remote work and a fairly low barrier to entry. You don't need necessarily a special degree, but getting that first job is hard. And yes, are there Salesforce riches down the line? Like, yes, for folks that stick it out and really embrace, I would say, like those, like the admin skill kit skills, like the continuous learning mindset, and understanding project management and a designer mindset, and all these things that really comprise a good Salesforce professional. If they're willing to work on that stuff, yes, there are Salesforce riches down the line. But getting that first job and being able to convince people that you're qualified to do all those things is really challenging. You can have lots of transferable skills, but at the end of the day, like, Salesforce is a central system for it's if it's done well, it should be, the nervous system of any company's day-to-day operations. And so it's a lot of responsibility to just give that to somebody that's never worked with it before.
Right.
And there aren't so many companies that are so big that they've got teams. So if they're just hiring a solo admin, you don't want somebody who's, was a high school teacher last year running your org as a solo admin, because they don't necessarily understand governance or tech debt or all the bajillion things that could go wrong in a Salesforce org. There's a reason why there's so many employed consultants, and why we're so busy, and it's really easy to make a mess out of Salesforce.
Right. I take pride in the many messes I have created.
Me too. I actually I had a tweet the other day, because like there's a lady that I'm connected with on LinkedIn, that works at the SaaS organization that I started at, and like that was like a classic org, and we did like cool stuff in that org. Don't get me wrong, like I was like, an A student as far as Salesforce was concerned. But like I look back on it, like, in my head, I'm like, oh, does she looking at my old org and going like, oh, ooh, like, you know? But we all make mistakes on that first org, and it's a matter of, can you find a company that wants to take that chance on you? Because yeah, we all do have those stories.
Yeah, well, and I think I going in. I well, before I took the one of the things that I guess convinced him I could do the role was when we implemented Salesforce. I was one of the ones that was figuring out, because I would go on to Trailhead, and Trailhead's great if you're in a B2B, B2C world. I'm in education, and so to try and translate some of Trailhead into my world was a little bit difficult, because like, okay, this is great, but how does this actually? So I would make YouTube videos on how do we send something like list emails. How do you send a list email to people, because they wanted to do that, because our actual admin was busy doing the implementation stuff. And then when he left, it was just became, well, I guess it became obvious, or they were just desperate enough, and they haven't fired me 3 years later. So um, now, speaking of certifications, you apparently have 7 of them, according to
Ew.
your LinkedIn. And depending on your goals, that's either too many or too few. But here's a question I actually already have, because I next week we're all going to, well, you and I are going to Dreamforce with a few thousand of our closest friends, and I'm actually on the Tuesday. I'm writing my admin exam. I was going to write it earlier, but then I realized I could do it for free. The certs that you have taken, I haven't actually looked in. I know about the most recent one. We're going to talk about your involvement with that. I look at people who have like a crazy number, and 7 I don't consider to be a crazy number, but like people have like
Thanks.
a double digit to like all just this weird number. I'm just like, did you take them all out of what you felt was a necessity, or just you just what for your own personal, um just to prove it to yourself, or was it a mix of both, or?
A mix of it all. But I'm going to sidetrack on a quick story, and then
Yeah,
I will go
please.
into my certification
Sure.
journey.
Yeah.
So when you say that about the double digit folks, so when I first started getting into all this, especially like the business analysis stuff, and I decided that, I wanted to kind of start doing speaking engagements, some guy from the IIBA in Texas was like, "Oh, you do speaking engagements? Would you like to speak to my IIBA group? That's the International Institute of Business Analysis."
Okay.
And I was like, "Sure, I'd love to." And I really had never done speaking engagements before, but I was like, "Okay, I could do this, meet with like a little group." And he's like, "Cool, I'm going to schedule you next week after this guy." And he sends, and I look up the guy's name on LinkedIn, and is and I've never actually met him. I think if I do meet him, I'll tell him the story, because I think he might get a kick out of it. But his name was Carl Brundage, and he's like a 30 or 40 something time certified guy. And I backed out of the session. I was like, "You're not putting me on the week after that guy. Like, no, no way. I'm not going on after the god of Salesforce. I'm sorry." But it was the I spoke to a friend of mine, Anita Smith, after that, and like
Mm,
Anita was saying, if I saw the god of Salesforce with his 30 something certifications, it might not feel attainable. Whereas if I saw your session with, your 5 certifications or 7
right.
certifications or whatever, it feels there are fewer steps in between where I'm at and where you're at. And I'm sure there are people that wouldn't care to see my session, but would get a lot out of Carl's. And so I think there's a point to be made that there's room for all of us, no
Sure.
matter where we are in our journey, to talk to the people behind us. Now, as far as why I have my certifications, didn't get my first cert until I was 10 years into the ecosystem, because kind of like you, I just kind of fell into it. So it wasn't I didn't need it. I was the VP of business ops, like, why
Right.
was I going to get an admin certification? Um then when I wanted to move into consulting, I realized that nobody was going to take my phone calls without an admin cert.
Mm,
So ended up getting my admin cert in January 2020. And then after that, it was just kind of like, okay, well, I should keep studying, because I want to be a consultant. And I think being a consultant, it's important to kind of be well rounded on multiple clouds. And also, I wanted to have some say in the kinds of projects that I got put on. And
mm,
so I would start studying, because it was always easier to study if there's like a goal at the end, like a certification. And then if I could get the cert ahead of time, it was easier to justify them putting me on a project. So
right.
like I got a Service Cloud certification, and now I'm on a Service Cloud project, the first time I've ever been on one. But I don't know that it would have been as easy of a sell if I only had my Sales Cloud cert. Then there are also a couple that I got because I had a voucher for it. like sometimes pushes it. Like I've
Yeah.
never opened a marketing cloud in my life, but they were like really pushing that email, marketing specialist. So I was like, hell, why not? Let's just do it. And I did it and it was great. I'm not a certification gatekeeper. If you want to treat them like Pokemon and catch them all, more power to you. If you only want ones where you feel you're an expert and you feel like that maintains the integrity of the Salesforce certification program, like more power to you too. It is what it is. Everybody's on their own path. Do your own thing, whatever works for you.
Right. Yeah. I always tell myself, it's funny, I look and I think, oh, what's my next? I think I want to head down the dev path because for now, because
Really?
I think so. We'll see. Because every so often I get, frustrated, but it's like, I could do so much more if I could just code something. Like, well, let's talk about business analyst because that is, well, I guess it's not the newest cert anymore because we just got the newest, the entry level one, I guess. But now, am I correct that you had a hand in the creation of that certification?
Yes. Yes. I got tapped by Salesforce to be a subject matter expert for that one. There was a whole group of us. It wasn't like, it's not Vanessa Grant wrote the thing. Like there was a team of very highly qualified, like awesome trailblazers that contributed to it. I'm just the most obnoxious about it because I'm really, really proud of it. Is that a sound effect? It's awesome. Confetti. So but yeah, it was a big honor for me, and I will also say it was validation that my personal branding is working. I wasn't a business analyst. I mean, I think I had a business analyst hat when I was, a business ops person, but I didn't have the title of business analyst until 2020.
Right.
And so it was a good validation for how far I've come in my career and my contribution to the community. So I'm really, really proud of that one. And I love that Salesforce is doing kind of these soft skill certs. Especially you open up any job description for a BA, like there's still some that are like, you also need to be able to write flows. And then there's other ones that are like, you need to be able to read code and do Apex. And then there are other ones that are very pure, like BA type roles, or maybe you're just going to be a generic BA and you're going to just do IT projects and Salesforce is just going to be one of them. There's a lot of ambiguity right now, particularly in the Salesforce ecosystem, as far as the responsibilities of a business analyst. And I think a lot of times also they kind of get kind of pigeonholed into it's just discovery and user stories, but there's actually work that BAs should be doing at every stage of the implementation lifecycle. And I'm really excited that we have something like the certification, which will hopefully start evolving that idea that people have on what a BA is and what role they can play on a team.
So, for those who don't know, what is a BA?
A business analyst, so is a BA. So business analysts, that's goodness. How to define a business analyst? I will say, at a more generic kind of level, the role ends up often being the bridge between the business folks and the development folks. So it's a project based role. Um, you can have a BA also kind of help out day to day. I've seen that as well. If you're on a small internal team and it's just you, if it's just an admin and a BA, like, yeah, sometimes the BA's got to roll up their sleeves and do some, take care of a couple tickets here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, though, it's more of a project based role, where if there's a project happening, the BA will be the one to speak to the business stakeholders, make sure the business stakeholders are aligned as far as what their goals are, getting a really clear understanding of the scope of the project, gathering those requirements, and basically writing them up in such a way so that a development team or configuration team, admins, devs, whoever comprises that team, and the BA is part of the dev team, is considered part of the dev team, can go and make progress on building out that functionality. The BA, I think putting a BA on a team will absolutely help project teams figure out what is the right thing to build, not just build stuff. So it's more of a thoughtful approach, kind of they call it like shifting left, where you kind of front load a lot of that research and analysis and business analysis to really get to the heart of what they want. Businesses don't exist to create buttons and emails, and a lot of times when you're speaking to stakeholders, they're just like, I need a button that does this, or I need and so by really sitting down and being more of like a trusted advisor to a business, you really kind of get an understanding of what the business need is. And when you communicate the business need to the Salesforce professionals, you being one of them, but also if there's an architect or an admin or whoever is in charge of the health of the Salesforce org, um, they, as the Salesforce expert, can then decide what the best path forward is, because they'll have more options, because it's not going to be they're limited to a button. It's going to be, okay, the business needs to accomplish this. How can, with the understanding that we have of Salesforce and all the features and functionality, how can we best accomplish this so that we can give the business what they need, but also maintain the health of the Salesforce org? BAs are also really important when it comes to getting feedback. So as projects move along, let's say there's a failure in, once it moves to production because there was a challenge with an integration or something like that. Getting that feedback and doing that documentation is really important on the original requirements. Okay, so we had to go in a different direction because BAs often take care of user acceptance testing. So writing test scripts for user acceptance testing is often something that BAs do, because they are very close to those stakeholders. And then there's a whole bunch of other things along the way that BAs can be a part of over the course of the implementation lifecycle. But I think BAs add value to any Salesforce project.
So one of the things that I've been thinking about lately, because I'm a solo admin, one org, is it'll be interesting to me to see if the admin cert, or if another one comes out that's more evolved. I mean, first of all, we now have to know flows, or you're not doing much of anything. But also occurs to me as a solo admin how much of, I would never have called it this, but business analysis, I guess I do, because people will send me requests for things, and I've now added a line to the case where they file them. It says, well, what problem does this solve? And because so often, as you say, some people, they think they know what they want, but or how to solve it rather. And they come to you and say, can we just have like one more checkbox? You're like, oh, I have a panel full of checkboxes. Like, looks like you're trying to launch the space shuttle, just trying to. But it's interesting to me, just as, again, as a solo admin, just how many of these sort of varied skills. I mean, I've even, in a conversation with an architect, you sort of realize you even use some architecting skills, I guess, just to try and understand. As David Giller said to me, he said, you don't want to be an order taker.
Yes.
You don't want to just be someone who says, we want a checkbox, does this, and you just do it. Right? You want to say, okay, this is what you want, but what are you trying to accomplish? Partially because, frankly, sometimes people will say, this is what we want to accomplish, and I say, well, you can already do that, and you just have to show them.
Absolutely.
One of the most heartbreaking moments of my career was when I put a note in about, hey, you can now do this on your homepage, and someone said, what's a homepage?
Oh no.
I just cried. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or get angry. But anyway,
I mean, my whole I'm speaking at Dreamforce next week, and that's a big part of what we're covering. It's the power of no, where it's not just do everything that don't be an order taker, because if you're an order taker, you will just accumulate massive amounts of technical debt. But it's a matter of how do you, and I feel it's tough for solo admins out there. Like, gosh, there's so much involved in being a solo admin. Wearing that business analysis hat, wearing that project management hat, wearing that the experience designer hat. There's so many hats to wear. But that makes it even more important that there's things like documentation and governance, and getting, the stakeholders to agree on what the priorities are, and making sure that they understand that, squeaky wheels aren't going to get oiled all the time.
Do you have any do you have any next step professional goals in mind for yourself? Things you want to accomplish?
Well, right now I'm working on I just partnered with Tony V. Martin. I'm supporting her in doing the Salesforce BA Virtual Summit in October.
Okay.
So I'm really excited about that. That's really the first event that I'm helping out with. So I don't know that I'm going to end up being an event person, but I am kind of excited to explore that. I think as things have evolved in my career in the last 2.5 years, and with all the mentorship I've done, it's gotten a little bit harder to do individual mentorship, even though I love it. But there's a lot of folks that, that are at that kind of entry level path and are looking for advice. And so kind of finding a platform like this, or the BA Summit, where I can kind of reach more people, is starting to become important. Just because I don't, I also have a family and and
Yeah.
a job. um, but mentorship is always going to be a really important part of what I do. As far as me personally, I love consulting. I do love consulting, and so I do see myself probably consulting for another few years, as long as I don't totally burn out. We'll see. Um, so as long as I can stand it, maybe possibly after that. I was a product owner for 7 years, and so I could see maybe being a product owner for an enterprise Salesforce org again down the line. That when I'm tired of the rat race of consulting, because it's wild. Consulting is just wild, but it's awesome.
So are you? It sounds like you're a large company kind of person. Like you
Yes,
enjoy working for large companies.
I do. I've never worked a small Salesforce project,
Interesting.
and which is weird. But I guess it's because I mean, yeah, I think it's not even like necessarily even large. I think it's complex.
Okay.
So it doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily need like 5,000 users. You could have 150 users, but if you've got a pile of integrations and, several clouds,
Right.
it can get complex really fast. And so it's really important to have, a lot of the things that I tend to bring in place, which I'm a very process oriented person. I document everything. I'm very good at like coming up with, okay, we know what the goal is and we know where we are, and figuring out what the steps are in between. And you know, don't ask me to write the flows, but but I can at least write out what needs to be done.
Right. Make it do this. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. We've got people for that. Must
Well,
must be nice.
it's there's a reason why they call certain people in our ecosystem unicorns, when
Mm,
they've like mastered the business side and the technical side. It is really difficult. I don't know that I'm ever going to be a CTA.
mm,
I would love to, but I just don't know if like my brain is wired that way. So it's okay. Well, what am I good at naturally, and also that I have a lot of experience in, and it's the business stuff. I'm a business process person at the end of the day. I love improving business processes, and Salesforce is just like my favorite tool in my tool belt.
right. No, and that's it's interesting. One of the things that I've noticed um, is because Salesforce, not the product, but the Salesforce professionals are a diverse group in terms of their skill set. People, when they write their job descriptions, are very confused people sometimes. And you see things for, they want an admin, but you read the description and said, no, what you really want is a developer. Maybe it's like, well, we don't really know what Salesforce does, but we know we need someone to make it do it. And so, and we maybe don't want to pay for someone if we call them a developer, but if you want someone to write code, you're gonna have to pay for it.
Oh, it's tough. I mean, because Salesforce is so customizable, it's almost kind of like the team that you need to
Mm,
support it has to be a little bit customizable.
right.
Yes, you can have a solo admin, but again, all right, is your solo admin, are they the unicorn that's also going to be able to to do the business analysis properly, and can they do that little bit of apex when it's needed, or do we need to outsource some of this stuff? Maybe we need some like a managed service package with a consulting company, so that when we get a few hours of code, a month, or if something breaks, that's beyond our admin skill set, we've got something. But I don't know that how to put that team together well is particularly evangelized among customers. I'm
Mm,
hoping that with the admin skill set, like the skills kit, if you've ever been on that site, it actually does show uh, customers how to ask for those skills,
hmm.
uh, which I think is very helpful and kind of a step in the right direction. But yeah, I mean, the job descriptions are kind of a mess because people want the unicorns, and there aren't that many of them. There's a reason they're called unicorns.
Right. Yeah. Or that once one thing that Salesforce could do, not necessarily from a technical perspective, but just from something they could do for the professionals. That's maybe not like, oh, I really wish the system did this, but something that would just make our lives easier or better or
Hmm.
to support us more.
To support us more.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'll just be my selfish self on this one, and
Please.
I I had a conversation with the evangelist team when I was at Midwest Dream, and basically asking for I know that business analysis kind of in their minds kind of falls under the admin umbrella. But I would love it if we had a little, like right now there's architect.salesforce.com, there's admin.salesforce.com, there's like
Right.
developer.salesforce.com. Now, I don't know that BA needs to be split out right now, but it would be lovely to have our little corner of the world with our best
Mm,
practices. I think the certification came out and people were a little bit confused by the trail mix because it came ahead of the material
okay.
of what best practices looks like on a Salesforce engagement for business analysts.
Okay.
So having our little corner of the universe, even if it's just like a page off the admin, you know, pages right
Right.
now would be great. Just so there's so many BAs out there. Like I just realized the other day as I was kind of putting stuff for the summit together that I'm connected to almost 1,000 Salesforce BAs.
Mm,
And I don't know who most of these people are, but they found me because they were looking for information on how to be a Salesforce business analyst, because that's
right.
really the main reason why people connect with me.
Okay.
And so there's a desire out there, there's a hunger out there for people to learn how to do their jobs well, and it's the information's kind of piecemeal at the moment. So having a dedicated spot where we can say this is the Salesforce way. If Salesforce were just like, you see those admin blogs, like I know I've gone onto the admin blog and like, oh, okay, this is how you should do this thing if you were doing it perfectly. Like that's just a starting point, I think would be huge.
Well, I shouldn't say I just found. So on Salesforce Plus, their streaming platform, they have a series called, I think it's called How I Solved It. And it's,
Yes, my speaking
yeah,
partner was
yeah.
episode 1.
And that was, I guess, um, inspired by, riffed off of a YouTube series they have, same name. And I was just looking at some of those today, and I looked at one of them and went, oh, wow. Like, one of them was how to write a report to tell you when any other report is modified. And I watched her write it, and I was like, that's genius.
Yes.
But anyway, but this gets to my point of like one of the things that I wish that well, okay, I don't know how they would do this. This is the wonderful thing of not having to be the one who solves the problem. Is, as you say, admin.salesforce developer. They've got all these websites, and they've done a much better job through Trailblazer of uniting these things together. But man, when I started, I was like, how many websites seem to do the same thing? It's like I would get so lost. But I hear you. As a skill set becomes a standalone vocation or something. Yeah, maybe that's more standalone. They need to resource it more, so that I guess so they feel seen and valued as part of, and also just so that, I mean, the certification's awesome. Like, it's great that it's there because it does announce that it's being recognized as its own value. But as you say, that needs to be backed up by all the same resources we give everything else to the level that we need to for that skill set. So
Absolutely. And I always say Salesforce is amazing at getting people to do free things for them. So there's just so much Salesforce content. I feel bad for all these people getting into the ecosystem that are like, trying to find the information that they need, and it's like, just like information everywhere. So yeah, I think how to approach the to find the information that you need, but it would also be helpful. Absolutely.
It's such a good point. I mean, there's a joke about I had an architect help me with a problem. I don't know, a couple months ago, and he was just joking about. He's like, I'm not really that smart. I just Google really well, but don't we all? Right? I mean, we all Google. How do I do this? And I mean, I'm in. I don't even know 6 different Slack channels and Twitter but yeah, I mean, but then you couple that with 3 updates a year, you know, and trying to find the right information can be so daunting. I'm really enjoying getting to know people that I converse with on Twitter. I'm like, these are, who are these great people? And I think the rest of the world needs to know these great people. So,
well, good to meet you too. Thanks for
you
doing
too.
this.
Yo, you're
And I'm
welcome.
excited to see you next week at Dreamforce.
Yes, which will admittedly be weird because this will probably come out after Dreamforce. But
wow.
But it was nice to see you.
Well, just assume we had a blast.
It was a fantastic time. Both of our talks were great. Top rated. Anyways, thank you so much, Vanessa, for joining me. I really appreciate you giving up your time and just get a chance to get to know you and to learn from you.
Thanks so much. Take care.